In a town where everyone knows each other's name, a shocking act of cruelty leaves the community paralyzed. As silence spreads, a few unexpected heroes rise. But who will stand and who will fall? In the heart of a small town, life unfolded like the pages of a worn-out book, predictable and familiar. Every morning, the sun rose over the neatly lined houses, its golden rays spilling across picket fences and manicured lawns. For many, this town was a safe haven, a place where everyone knew each other's names and routines. Yet beneath the surface of this idyllic facade lay an unsettling truth, an undercurrent of racism that had seeped into the very fabric of their community. The Ramirez family had recently moved to town, seeking a fresh start. Alejandro and Maria, along with their two children, Sofia and Javier, were filled with hope as they unpacked boxes in their new home. They had worked hard to secure this opportunity, driven by dreams of a better life. The family often laughed and shared stories around the dinner table, their warmth radiating like a beacon amidst the chill of unwelcome glances. But even as they tried to integrate, the reality of their situation began to set in. At first, it was small things. A comment made under breath at the grocery store. A hesitant smile from a neighbor who quickly looked away. The children faced the brunt of it at school, where whispers followed them like shadows. Sophia, with her bright eyes and contagious laughter, tried to make friends but often found herself sitting alone at lunch. Meanwhile, Javier, determined to prove himself on the soccer field, quickly learned that talent alone wasn't enough to win the acceptance of his peers. As weeks turned into months, the subtle microaggressions escalated. One evening, while taking a family stroll, they were met with scornful looks and muttered insults. Maria felt her heart clench in her chest, the air around them thick with tension. "We just want to belong," she whispered to Alejandro, who wrapped an arm around her shoulders, silently reassuring her. They were determined not to let the hostility extinguish their hopes. But the town remained largely unresponsive, a silent witness to the discrimination unfolding before their eyes. Many residents preferred to avoid conflict, choosing to ignore the whispers of hate echoing through their streets. After all, it was easier to look the other way than to confront the deep-seated beliefs that had festered for generations. It was a dance of denial. Each day they awoke, sipping coffee and nodding at one another, pretending that everything was fine. Then came the night that would change everything. It was an ordinary Saturday, the town quiet and calm, when a group of teenagers, emboldened by anonymity and a misguided sense of bravado, vandalized the Ramirez home. They spray-painted hateful slurs across the front door, their laughter ringing through the darkness like a chilling anthem. When Alejandro and Maria discovered the damage, their hearts shattered. "What kind of monsters would do this?" Maria cried, tears streaming down her face as she clutched Sofia and Javier tightly. Alejandro's fists clenched in rage, but it was a different kind of fury, a deep, burning anger that coursed through him as he looked at his children, their innocence tainted by the ugliness of the world outside. They had come to this town with dreams, only to have those dreams crushed by hate. The news of the attack spread quickly, sending shockwaves through the community. Some were horrified, others shrugged it off, muttering about the family bringing trouble upon themselves. This was the town's true face, a revelation that sent Alejandro reeling. The night felt endless, filled with the echoes of despair and disbelief. As dawn broke, the family gathered on their porch, feeling the weight of their isolation. The sun peeked over the horizon, casting a golden glow on their faces. But it did little to ease their hearts. They felt alone in a world that seemed intent on pushing them away. But amidst the darkness, a flicker of hope ignited within Alejandro. "We won't let this define us," he declared, determination lighting his eyes. Maria nodded, her resolve strengthening. They understood that to fight against the storm brewing in their town, they would have to be brave, not just for themselves, but for their children and others who had suffered in silence. In the days that followed, the family began to rally their strength, not knowing that their struggle would soon become a catalyst for change. Their story would weave through the very heart of the town, challenging the quiet complicity of their neighbors and awakening the courage hidden in the shadows. As whispers of discontent began to rise, a storm was brewing, not just outside their home, but within the town itself. The winds of change were starting to blow. The days following the attack were a blur of shock and despair for the Ramirez family. The harsh words sprayed on their front door felt like a scar etched into their lives, a constant reminder of the hatred that lingered just beneath the surface of their new home. Each morning, as Alejandro stepped out for work, he scanned the street for signs of hostility, his heart racing with anxiety. Maria, too, felt a weight pressing down on her, an unshakable fear that this wouldn't be the last attack. Despite their resolve to remain strong, the family found themselves ensnared in a web of isolation. Neighbors who once greeted them with polite nods now avoided eye contact, crossing the street to steer clear of the tension that surrounded the Ramirez household. It was as if their mere presence was a trigger, reminding others of the divisions that were supposed to be buried. Sofia and Javier returned to school, their hearts heavy with uncertainty. Sofia, who had always been a beacon of light, now walked with her head down, her vibrant laughter replaced by silence. At lunch, she was met with whispers and pointed fingers, the words troublemaker and outsider floating in the air around her. It felt as though every bite of food lodged in her throat, each forkful a reminder of her alienation. Javier, usually brimming with confidence, found himself hesitating on the soccer field. He could hear the murmurs from the sidelines, the jeers that echoed from boys who had once been his friends. At home, the walls felt like they were closing in. Maria and Alejandro did their best to shield their children from the storm brewing outside, but the anxiety seeped into every corner of their lives. They gathered together each evening, a fragile unit trying to support one another. "We have to stay strong," Alejandro would say, though his voice faltered under the weight of his own fear. Maria nodded, but she could see the doubt in his eyes, a flicker of hopelessness that she couldn't ignore. They both knew that fear was a powerful enemy, one that could suffocate hope if left unchecked. Meanwhile, in the town, whispers of the attack stirred a quiet unease. While many residents were horrified by the violence, others remained paralyzed by fear. A few of the town's elders, influential figures who had long held sway over the community, dismissed the incident as an isolated event, something that would blow over if left undisturbed. They held fast to the belief that confronting the issue would only draw more attention to it, feeding the flames of discord. But for the younger residents, especially the ones who had grown up alongside the Ramirez family, the silence became increasingly unbearable. Among them was Emma, a college student home for the summer, who had always been passionate about social justice. The news of the attack hit her like a punch to the gut, igniting a fire within her that refused to be extinguished. She felt compelled to act, driven by a sense of moral duty that pushed her to confront the apathy surrounding her. Emma began to organize meetings with her peers, gathering them in her living room, their voices rising with frustration and determination. "We can't let this go unnoticed," she insisted, her eyes blazing with conviction. "We need to stand with the Ramirez family. We can't let fear keep us silent." Some nodded, their faces alight with shared passion, while others hesitated, the weight of tradition and fear bearing down on them. They had been taught to keep the peace, to avoid stirring the pot. As the days turned into weeks, Emma's small group grew, fueled by an urgency to break the silence. But with each meeting, the tension in town thickened. Rumors spread like wildfire, and the activist group faced backlash. "Why are you causing trouble?" an older resident shouted during one of their meetings, anger boiling over. "This isn't our fight." Emma felt the sting of those words, but she refused to back down. "It is our fight," she shouted back, her voice quaking with emotion. "If we don't stand together, we all lose." The emotional divide in the town deepened. Some residents rallied behind Emma, inspired by her bravery. Others turned against her, feeling threatened by the potential upheaval of their comfortable lives. In the shadows, fear became a tangible force, stifling conversations and silencing dissent. The Ramirez family, unaware of the growing movement supporting them, continued to feel the weight of their isolation. On one particularly tense evening, as storms rolled in from the horizon, Alejandro and Maria sat on their porch, the oppressive silence of the night wrapping around them like a shroud. Maria's heart ached as she glanced at the door, the ugly words still haunting her. "Do you think we will ever feel safe here?" she asked, her voice trembling. Alejandro sighed, his eyes searching the darkened street. "I don't know," he replied, fear creeping into his tone. "But we have to hold on to hope." And as the thunder rumbled in the distance, an unshakable truth settled within them. The silence that had kept them captive was also the spark that could ignite change. Little did they know that the storm brewing within the town mirrored the one raging outside, and soon the tides would begin to turn. The pressure in the town was building, each day amplifying the tension that had simmered just beneath the surface. Emma, fueled by her conviction to stand up for the Ramirez family, gathered her growing group of supporters for a critical meeting. The room hummed with anticipation as they took their seats, eager to discuss their next steps. "We can't just wait for change to happen," Emma urged, her voice steady but passionate. "We need to make our voices heard." As the group brainstormed ideas, they spoke of organizing a peaceful protest, a gathering that would draw attention to the injustice faced by the Ramirez family and, by extension, the entire community. "This is our chance to show that we won't stand for hate," Emma declared, her eyes shining with determination. The thought of taking a stand ignited a fire within her companions, yet doubt lingered in the air. "What if people get angry?" one young man asked, concern creasing his brow. "What if they turn against us?" The question hung heavy in the room, a reminder of the fear that had silenced so many for too long. Emma took a deep breath, recalling her own fears but pushing them aside. "We can't let fear dictate our actions," she replied, a firmness settling in her tone. "If we don't stand up now, we'll always regret it." With the decision made, the group mobilized quickly. They designed colorful posters, each adorned with messages of unity and support for the Ramirez family. "No more silence," and "Hate has no home here," became their rallying cries. The energy in the room was electric, charged with hope and purpose. Yet beneath the excitement lay an undercurrent of anxiety, the uncertainty of how the town would react looming large. As the protest day approached, Emma felt the weight of her responsibility grow heavier. She spent hours preparing her speech, practicing in front of the mirror, trying to capture the raw emotions she hoped would resonate with the crowd. On the morning of the protest, she felt a mixture of exhilaration and dread. Would they be met with support or hostility? As people began to gather in the town square, Emma looked out over the sea of faces, young and old, some familiar and some not. The sight of so many coming together for a common cause filled her with a sense of purpose. She glanced toward the Ramirez family, who had arrived tentatively, still grappling with the scars of their recent trauma. Alejandro held Sofia close, while Maria offered a reassuring smile, but Emma could see the uncertainty flickering in their eyes. When it was time to speak, Emma climbed onto the makeshift stage, heart pounding as she scanned the crowd. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "We gather not just for the Ramirez family, but for everyone who has ever felt alone, marginalized, or silenced. It's time to break the chains of fear that have kept us quiet for far too long." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Emma felt her confidence swell. She spoke of the beauty of diversity, the strength found in unity, and the importance of standing against hatred. But just as her words began to resonate, a group of older townsfolk emerged from the crowd, their faces etched with disapproval. "You're causing trouble," one man shouted, his voice cutting through the air like a knife. "This isn't how we do things here." Emma's heart sank for a moment, but she quickly steadied herself. "No," she replied, her voice gaining strength. "This is how we change things. By speaking out against injustice, we are honoring the values of compassion and kindness that should define our town." The tension was palpable as the crowd shifted uneasily. Emma could see the fear reflected in the eyes of many, but she pressed on, refusing to back down. "If we remain silent, we allow hate to fester and grow. But if we stand together, we can begin to heal our community." Her words hung in the air, a plea for courage. As the confrontation intensified, Alejandro stepped forward, his face a mask of resolve. "My family has faced unimaginable pain," he said, his voice steady. "But we are not alone. We have found allies in this town who refuse to accept hate as the norm." The crowd erupted in applause, and for the first time, the Ramirez family felt a flicker of hope igniting within them. The older townsfolk, visibly taken aback by Alejandro's words, seemed momentarily stunned. "You don't belong here," another man yelled, but this time his voice lacked conviction. The response from the crowd was overwhelming, a chorus of voices rising in support of the Ramirez family and Emma's cause. "Yes, we do," a young woman shouted, tears in her eyes, emboldened by the moment. This is our town too. As the protest continued, the atmosphere shifted. What began as a fearful gathering transformed into a celebration of resilience and solidarity. People shared stories of their own experiences with discrimination and fear, their voices blending into a powerful testament against the silence that had long pervaded the community. In that moment, the Ramirez family felt a warmth they had never experienced before. They were no longer just victims of hate. They were part of a movement, a community awakening to the truth of their shared humanity. The walls that had confined them began to crumble as others reached out in support, offering their friendship and understanding. When the sun dipped low in the sky, painting the horizon in hues of orange and pink, Emma stepped back to watch the scene unfold. The unity among the crowd filled her with an indescribable joy, a sense that they were on the precipice of something monumental. It wasn't just about the Ramirez family anymore. It was about the entire town reclaiming its identity, standing firmly against the chains of fear that had held them captive for so long. As the evening progressed, laughter and chatter echoed through the square, and the protest evolved into a celebration of diversity and community. Emma's heart soared as she realized they had ignited a spark, one that could illuminate the darkest corners of their town. Together, they were carving a new narrative, one that promised to shine brightly in the face of hatred. Resilience forged from courage, and a collective determination to change the world. The days following the protest transformed the town in ways many had never anticipated. What began as a gathering for solidarity had sparked an awakening, a collective resolve that rippled through the community. News of the protest spread like wildfire, reaching neighboring towns and igniting discussions about racism, justice, and the power of unity. Emma, Alejandro, and Maria became symbols of courage, their determination inspiring others to confront the uncomfortable truths that had long been hidden. However, with newfound attention came resistance. The backlash against the protest grew, manifesting in more than just harsh words. Vandalism became a frequent occurrence as hateful messages re-emerged in the town, a cruel reminder that not everyone was ready to embrace change. The walls of the Ramirez family's home were defaced again, and this time, the words were more venomous, taunts and threats that made it impossible to ignore the danger lurking in the shadows. Sofia and Javier, once excited about their growing friend groups, felt the weight of the world on their shoulders. At school, the atmosphere was tense, divided between those who stood in support of the Ramirez family and those who aligned with the darker sentiments. Sofia, once vibrant and full of laughter, found herself retreating into silence, the taunts of her peers cutting deep. Javier, meanwhile, struggled to navigate friendships that had splintered in the aftermath of the protest. The pressure to conform to the status quo weighed heavily on them, and they were acutely aware of the chasm that had formed in their community. But the Ramirez family was not alone. Emma and her supporters became determined to counteract the negative responses with acts of solidarity. They organized community forums where residents could voice their thoughts, share their stories, and listen to each other. Emma stood at the forefront, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. She understood that these conversations were necessary, a way to confront the fears that had silenced so many for too long. At one such forum, a local teacher, Mr. Thompson, shared his experience of growing up in a family that had struggled with acceptance. "I remember my father saying, 'We can't let them see our weakness,'" he recalled, his voice shaking. "But vulnerability is not weakness. It's the first step toward understanding." His words resonated with the crowd, breaking through the layers of distrust that had built up over the years. More residents began to share their experiences, stories of feeling marginalized, ignored, and, at times, outright rejected. One evening, after a particularly moving forum, the group gathered at Emma's house, exhausted but exhilarated. "We have to keep pushing," Emma said, her eyes bright with passion. "Every voice matters. We're building a community that can no longer stay silent." As they brainstormed their next steps, Maria suggested organizing a community day where everyone could come together to celebrate diversity through food, music, and stories. The idea resonated, and soon plans were underway for a vibrant festival that would showcase the town's rich tapestry of cultures. Meanwhile, tension continued to escalate in the town. A particularly vocal group of residents opposed to the Ramirez family's presence began to organize their own counter-protests, spreading messages of hate and exclusion. They waved signs that read, "Keep our town pure," and "No room for outsiders." It was disheartening, a stark reminder that not everyone embraced the changes. But with each act of resistance, the supporters of the Ramirez family became even more resolute. As the community day approached, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation and fear. Emma knew they were walking a fine line. One incident could spark violence, and the weight of that possibility sat heavily on everyone's shoulders. But she refused to let fear dictate their actions. "This is our moment," she declared at the final planning meeting. "We are not just celebrating diversity, we're showing that love is stronger than hate." The day arrived and the town square buzzed with energy. Colorful banners flapped in the breeze, music filled the air, and the enticing aromas of diverse cuisines wafted through the streets. Families gathered, laughter mixing with the melodies of different cultures. Emma watched as Sophia and Javier helped set up, their faces lighting up as they engaged with neighbors who had once avoided them. It felt like a shift, a reclamation of the space that had once felt so hostile. As the festivities unfolded, people began to share their stories openly, finding common ground amid the diversity. They danced to rhythms that echoed the rich histories of their families, each beat a reminder of the strength found in unity. Maria and Alejandro shared their family's traditional dishes, drawing compliments and curious questions from neighbors who had never taken the time to know them. With every shared story and every bite of food, walls crumbled and connections formed. But as the event reached its peak, the sound of shouting shattered the joyous atmosphere. A group of protesters from the opposing faction had arrived, brandishing their signs and shouting slogans of hate. Fear rippled through the crowd, but Emma, feeling a surge of courage, stepped forward. "We won't be silenced," she shouted, her voice ringing out above the chaos. "This is our town. We stand together." The crowd rallied behind her, their voices rising in a powerful chorus. "Love, not hate," they chanted, a united front against the animosity that threatened to tear them apart. Emma locked eyes with Alejandro, who stood tall beside his family, a look of fierce determination on his face. In that moment, they were no longer just individuals fighting for justice. They were part of something larger, a movement that transcended their fears. As tensions reached a boiling point, the leaders of both sides found themselves face to face. The shouting intensified, and for a moment it felt as though chaos would reign. But just then, a soft voice cut through the noise. A young girl, no older than 8, stepped forward from the crowd. She held a colorful sign that read, "We are all friends." Her innocence struck a chord, and the shouting faltered as everyone turned to look at her. The girl's simple message reminded them of the humanity that connected them all. One by one, the voices of dissent began to quiet, replaced by murmurs of understanding. Emma, fueled by the moment, took a deep breath and addressed the crowd. "This isn't about dividing us. It's about coming together. We can't let hate win. Let's show our town the power of love and acceptance." As the words sank in, a shift occurred. The protesters, feeling the weight of the moment, began to lower their signs. What had started as an impending clash transformed into a powerful moment of reflection. One man from the opposing group stepped forward, his expression conflicted. "Maybe we need to listen," he said, voice wavering. "Maybe it's time to understand instead of fight." In that fragile moment of vulnerability, the crowd held its breath, waiting to see if this would mark a turning point. As silence enveloped the square, it became clear that resistance could coexist with solidarity, that understanding could emerge from even the deepest divisions. And in that collective heartbeat, the community stood on the brink of transformation, ready to embrace the future they had all hoped for. The events of the Community Day marked a watershed moment for the town. What had begun as a fissure filled with distrust and division slowly transformed into a tapestry of connection and understanding. In the weeks following the protest, something remarkable began to take root, an atmosphere tinged with hope and collective determination to heal. As the dust settled from the confrontation, the town's residents found themselves navigating uncharted territory. Emma, buoyed by the success of the Community Day, initiated monthly gatherings designed for open dialogue. "Let's keep this momentum going," she encouraged her friends and neighbors. "We need to discuss our differences and find solutions together." Each meeting drew a diverse crowd, from young families to elderly residents, all eager to share their thoughts and experiences. One evening, during a particularly candid discussion, Maria bravely shared her family's journey. "When we first moved here, I thought it would be a fresh start for us," she began, her voice steady yet emotional. "But we faced hostility that felt like a wall we couldn't break through. It was heartbreaking." The room grew quiet, the weight of her words resonating deeply with everyone present. "But this town has shown us something incredible: the power of community. We're not just fighting against hate, we're building something beautiful together." Her testimony ignited a spark in others, leading to an outpouring of stories that highlighted the struggles and triumphs that shaped their lives. Residents began to connect over shared experiences, forging bonds that transcended their differences. They laughed, cried, and listened, realizing they were all navigating the complexities of existence together. It was a cathartic process, one that opened hearts and minds, allowing the community to move forward as one. Encouraged by the progress, Emma proposed a town-wide project, a mural that would encapsulate their journey toward unity. The idea was met with enthusiasm, and soon artists from all backgrounds came together to plan the mural's design. They envisioned vibrant colors and images that told the stories of their diverse community, representations of struggle, resilience, and love. "This mural will serve as a reminder of who we are and what we stand for," Emma said, excitement bubbling within her. As the day of the mural painting approached, the town buzzed with anticipation. Families gathered to paint alongside local artists, creating something beautiful that echoed their shared commitment to change. The act of painting became more than just an artistic endeavor. It transformed into a communal celebration of identity, an expression of solidarity. People of all ages joined hands, laughing and sharing stories, while painting their contributions to the mural. Each stroke of paint was infused with hope, joy, and a determination to foster inclusivity. But amid the celebration, shadows of resistance still lingered. A small but vocal group continued to voice their opposition to the Ramirez family and the changes taking place in the town. "This is not who we are," one member shouted during a council meeting, his face red with anger. "We're losing our values." Despite the negativity, Emma and her supporters refused to back down. They understood that transformation often invites backlash, but they were committed to showing their neighbors that love and acceptance could prevail. One evening, as the mural took shape, a surprising twist emerged. A few members of the opposing group approached Emma, their expressions guarded but sincere. "We want to help," one woman said hesitantly. "We realize we haven't listened to you. Maybe it's time to understand instead of fight." Emma was taken aback but seized the opportunity. "This mural is about all of us," she replied, her heart racing. "Your contributions would mean a lot. Let's create something we can all be proud of." With that, a new chapter began. Former adversaries joined hands with Emma and the Ramirez family, each adding their unique touch to the mural. As they painted together, laughter and conversation replaced hostility. The barriers that had once divided them started to crumble, replaced by a sense of camaraderie that echoed throughout the town. Finally, the day of the mural unveiling arrived, and the town square was alive with excitement. Residents filled the streets, eager to witness the culmination of their efforts. The vibrant mural stood proudly on the wall, showcasing a collage of stories, cultures, and dreams. Emma stood beside Alejandro and Maria, pride swelling in her chest as she surveyed the crowd. "This mural represents our journey," she said, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "It's a testament to our commitment to love, understanding, and community." As the crowd admired the mural, a sense of transformation washed over the town. The fear that had once gripped the community gave way to understanding, a new narrative that celebrated diversity rather than shunning it. Conversations flourished and friendships blossomed, creating a ripple effect that extended beyond the town limits. In the months that followed, the changes became increasingly palpable. Local businesses began to thrive as people from surrounding areas visited to see the mural and experience the community's vibrant spirit. Festivals celebrating different cultures emerged, each one bringing the town together to honor its rich diversity. The mural became a symbol, a focal point of unity and resilience, reminding everyone that transformation was not just possible, but essential. The Ramirez family, once isolated and burdened by fear, found a home in this new narrative. Sophia and Javier flourished in an environment that embraced their identities. They made friends who accepted them without reservation, and for the first time, they felt the weight of fear lift from their shoulders. Maria and Alejandro, empowered by their community support, began to actively engage in local initiatives, creating programs that educated others about cultural sensitivity and understanding. As seasons changed and time passed, the town became a shining example of resilience and solidarity. Emma, once a voice for change, found herself surrounded by a chorus of voices, each one strong, passionate, and unwavering in their commitment to a better future. The transformation was not without its challenges, but each hurdle only served to deepen their resolve. The mural stood as a testament to their journey, a reminder that love could triumph over hate. Each brushstroke captured the essence of their stories, an enduring legacy that would inspire generations to come. Together, they had forged a new identity, one rooted in acceptance, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to each other. As the sun set on the town, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Emma felt a profound sense of peace. They had risen against the tides of fear, and in doing so, they had created a home, a place where every voice mattered, every story was honored, and love prevailed. The town was no longer just a location on a map. It was a community woven together by resilience, hope, and the shared belief that together they could conquer anything. Thank you for joining us on this inspiring journey of transformation and resilience. If you found this story moving, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more powerful narratives that celebrate the strength of community and the triumph of love over hate. Your support helps us share more stories that matter. Until next time, remember that change begins with us.